Thank you for joining me today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. Today's lesson is about affection, loving without criticism, episode number 137. Have you been around somebody who has a really critical spirit? Were your mom or dad perpetually critical of you? Do you find yourself criticizing everything and everyone around you? It is certainly a lot easier to grump and gripe and complain, which is also part of the root of criticism about everything. Criticize your house, criticize your face, criticize your body, criticize your friends, criticize your family, criticize your loved ones, criticize your mate, criticize your car, criticize your boss, criticize your work. Land sakes, we human beings. And some people are born like it is in them to have a really critical spirit. God be merciful. I had both a critical mom and a critical dad. Literally, after my dad was in charge of us and my mom had left us as kids, if I did not come home with a straight 4.0, in other words, straight A's, no A minuses, or even like a 3.865, I got criticized. What were you thinking? What was wrong with you? Why in the world did you not get this? Why did you do this? What kind of things were you not doing? What were you doing instead? Oh, and clue, especially if you're a new viewer, when I was 12 years old, my mom split. I had to do laundry. I had to fold and put away clothes for my brothers and my sister. I had to cook. I had to go grocery shopping. I had to take care of the dishes. I had to take care of my family and to go to school and play my French horn in band and marching band. And I was in choir. And. I was a really active person. I always have been my entire life. And I was expected to get straight A's. And if I didn't, I was criticized. When I was a little kid, we got criticized about everything. Every single little tiny thing that we did, we got criticized about. Let me tell you, this is a terrible way to grow up. Oh, and bonus material, I had 7, count them, 7 older brothers and sisters, and most of them remain to this very day actually very critical people. Especially if you're around someone who is frequently critical and frequently complaining, it's very easy to go there because there's something about us humans. Misery does indeed love company. So somebody starts griping and complaining about whatever, everybody else can chime right in and usually try to one up the other guy. And I mean, this gets messy. It really gets ugly. It's not a good way to run a home, I want you to know. So my challenge question for the day is, you ask yourself this question, write it down in your notebook, be brave. Am I critical? I actually know some people that aren't hypercritical. I confess it's kind of shocking to me because that's not my nature, but they're almost so easygoing that they just don't have emotional energy or time to be critical. That's really stunning because that's not me. In my mind, though it is not what comes out of my mouth, far too often still, I am a critical person. Oh, what in the world are they wearing? Do they have a mirror? You know, driving down the road, someone who's a reasonably poor driver, they can't seem to manage to stay between the 2 lines that are their lane. They don't bother to signal when they're changing lanes. They don't bother to signal when they're going to turn, and they just slam their brakes, and you don't have any idea what in the world they're doing. And what are the first things that come out of my mouth? I bet you got your driver's license out of a Cracker Jack box, because I can't believe that you ever went to driver's ed. And if you did, you flunked. I'm not sure how they gave you a license. Yes, I really say these things occasionally to other people when I'm driving my car. I'm really critical. It's terrible. In my own mind, especially on a bad day when I'm already struggling, and you know, we all have bad days, I can be really critical of other people. Thank heavens I know about self-control. I can get a hold of that spirit inside of myself. I can certainly zip my lips, and I don't have to say it just because I'm thinking it. But here's the thing, it comes out in our attitude, and people know. That's why I've worked so hard on it. I wish I could say to you that I've eradicated it. Man, that would be a happy day for me if I could eradicate this out of my nature or my personality. But I'm telling you, it hasn't gone anywhere. If you tend to be really critical, if you were raised by critical parents, if there are a lot of critical people in your world, you are very likely to have been affected despite all of that criticism. Today, we actually want to talk about loving your children without criticism. So we'll start at the beginning. You have a 1 or a 2-year-old. In general, although I'm telling you that I have heard parents even do this, but in general, parents don't go, "What in the world is wrong with you? Why do you keep falling down?" Babies get up, then they fall down. Babies get up, then they fall down. No one ever gets it right the first time. We understand that with babies. It takes hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. I mean, kids who are learning to pull up and get their sense of balance, they might do that 100 times in a day, depending on how hyperactive they are. They might only do it 20 times a day, but I kid you not, some kids are going to do it 100 times in a day. And they do it day after day, week after week, until finally they're pretty stable and they're willing to walk all around that coffee table or walk up and down the edge of the couch. And one day they get brave enough to let go and take some steps. But most kids don't take 20 steps. They take 2 or 3 or 4 and they're kind of wobbly and down they go. And no one yells at them. No one's critical of them. What's wrong with you? Why didn't you get that right the first time? You know better than that. Get up and go across the room. We don't do that to babies. We understand they're on a learning curve and it takes time. My question is, why do we forget? Because guess what? 3-year-olds, even if they have dressed themselves 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 times, could just as likely put on their shirt backwards so the tag is in the front and it keeps bothering them and they don't understand what's wrong, or even inside out if somehow or another they were wrestling with that shirt and fighting it and turning it around and moving it and manipulating it. They may actually end up with their shirt inside out. And parents, I've heard them do this before. "Man, you can't even get dressed right. Look at you. Do you not understand?" Guess what? No, they do not. I'm telling you the truth right now. No, kids have no concept. 3, 4, sometimes even 5-year-old kids, they do not know front from back. They do not always know inside out. They don't know. Your criticism is doing nothing for them. They really don't know. So I want you to picture your child as a little tiny baby when they're learning to crawl and learning how to walk and learning how to move around. And I want you to remember every time you look at your 3-year-old, your 5-year-old, your 7-year-old, your 10-year-old, there are still skills that they have not yet developed, just like that baby learning to crawl or learning to walk. And your criticism isn't going to help. I was really terrible on the computer 15, 20 years ago, as in Nightmare City. I kid you not. I wish that weren't the case, but I'm telling the truth to you. Me and electronics, we are not good buds. In fact, so much so that I was at my son's house. My one grandson was about 2.5 years old, and all I wanted to do was turn on the television set. And you know what? I couldn't do it. There were 4 remotes there. My little grandson goes, "I help you, Granny." Dead serious. He picks it up. He turns on the TV. He's flipping these, and oh my word, he turned a movie on for me. I'll never forget that. It was so comical. He could have been critical of me. Like, "Wow, Granny, you're an old lady and you're this pathetic. You can't even work this out and figure out which remote and turn the TV on." Right? I was on a learning curve. Oh, this is absolutely not a joke. All right. So I was working on the computer, diligently trying to learn. And the person who was helping me learn was not terribly patient. They're standing over my back and over my shoulder, yelling at me, cursing at me, really being very impatient of me, being critical. And you know what? It didn't help me a bit. Not even a little. In fact, it almost gave me an aversion to sit near the computer when they were in the room. What do you know? When you are critical of your child, it's not helping a thing. I just really want you to get that through your head. And when you're critical of your spouse, that's not helping anything either. But since we're talking about the kids, we'll stick to that. And let me help you take this information and put it into other situations because it most assuredly fits. All right. So you look at your child. We're going to take a 10-year-old, okay? And you want this 10-year-old to go outside and rake the leaves. And they take the rake, and you figure this is cut and dried. Like, just rake up the leaves, put them in the bag, life is good. You go outside an hour later, and some part of the leaves are raked, and some part of the leaves are not. It's not a very thorough job, and some of the bags have holes in them, and you're just frustrated out of your mind. You start criticizing the kid, like, this is not a very hard job. What is wrong with you? How could you not get this right? I don't understand what you're thinking. You're correct. You don't. That's really very insightful, though you're going about it wrong. But you don't understand what they're thinking. They don't know that you mean every stinking leaf in the yard. They don't know that you mean rake up this much of the yard, put that many leaves into the bag, keep the rake away from the bag because it'll tear a hole inside of it. When you're finished with that bag, go put it in the garage or go put it out near the edge of the road by the curb. They don't know any of these things. And again, I'm going to repeat this to you till you get this message. That's on you, Dad. That's on you, Mom. You didn't give clear instructions. I cannot believe how many times I hear parents get all over their kids' backs, but they never told their kid clear instructions. Kids don't read minds, really and truly, and they've never experienced tons of things before. You are unrealistic to expect them to know stuff magically somehow that you've never taught them, and then shame on you when you come behind and criticize them about the job they did when they're actually doing their best. And I don't think I need to tell you this, but I'm going to anyways. Kids love to play. Oh my goodness, if I'm stuck doing this thing that I've got to do, well, I might as well have some fun while I'm at it. So they're throwing the leaves around and they're jumping in the leaves, and they get about half as much work done as they might have gotten done if they were doing it nonstop. But they are a kid. Wake up, Mom, wake up, Dad, kids play. And leaves are a blast to play in. What did you think? Did you really think they weren't going to play around in those leaves? That's not realistic at all. And yet you're going to criticize them about the kind of job they did. Wow. This is not helping your child. So you want your child to cooperate. You want your child to do a job that is well done. You want your child to feel good about themselves. You want your child to feel like they succeeded. That requires your intervention, and it requires you, preferably, having a great attitude. Okay, so I really want you to rake up these leaves. Let me show you how it's done. So the first whole bag of leaves, you rake. I need you to get all these leaves. Sometimes one's going to get away from you. You need to get that one up too. You get them all into the bag. You keep the rake away from the bag. The rake will tear the bag. You seal the bag off. You go put the bag in the garage. You take the bag out to the curb. You do a whole entire process with them. Now they know. Okay, let me watch you. Wow, you did pretty well. I mean, you left a few behind. Did you notice that one? See, there's no criticism there. It's a question that's kind, especially if your attitude really isn't critical. You left a few behind. Yeah, you did a really great job. You kind of forgot and got the rake a little closer to the bag than I might have liked, but you didn't tear a hole in the bag. That was great. Good work. I'm really proud of you. You did great. I think you can handle this on your own for a little while. I do definitely have things I need to take care of in the house. In half an hour, I'll come back and check on you. Or if they're not doing it great yet, in 15 minutes, I'll come back and check on you. If you're struggling a little bit, we'll do it again together. You can love your child without criticism. Let me tell you about discipline just for a minute, because I think this is a really gigantic, huge issue for a lot of parents. When parents discipline, sometimes they're really being critical. You knew better than this. Maybe they did, but they don't need to hear it from you. I'm not kidding about this. Nobody needs to get beaten on emotionally or verbally. It doesn't actually really help. And I was not good at this when I was young. I did walk out of my mom and dad's house, and I was ill-equipped to be extraordinarily kind to my children. And anybody that knows me or knew me back then, including my own sons, we don't flinch about admitting things that are true, could tell you that I was not a very kind parent when they were really little boys. I was critical. I learned to knock it off because I really started thinking about how it affected me, how I felt about it, what it was like having parents that acted like that. It didn't take me more than a few years to change my language and, in time, change my attitude toward my children. Kids make mistakes. Kids have to do something a large number of times before they are proficient at it. And in the meantime, I need to patiently show them again and show them again and show them again and give them chance after chance after chance and expect improvement but not unrealistically expect perfection after 1 or 2 times. It's just not going to happen, and they don't need all my criticism in the meantime. But when they do it wrong, and they meant to do it wrong, and they knew they do it wrong, and you need to correct them, it is perfectly acceptable, like perfectly, to say to them, you did not do that well. That is not criticism if it doesn't have this, you did not do that well. No, you did not do that well. And I've already shown you. You actually know how that's supposed to go, and I expect you to do this, especially if they've already been shown 20 times and you know they're just doing a lousy job because they're trying to get out of it. So now you're going to do this every day for the next 2 weeks. Whether that's take out the trash, sweep the floor after dinner, do the dishes, set the table, because you're going to get good at this task and you're going to demonstrate to me and yourself, frankly, that you are able to. When you really love someone without criticism, then they are free to blossom. They can be their best selves. They feel freedom. They feel comfort. Oh, yes. And they feel secure. So I invite you to do your best to learn, even if you feel critical, to shut your mouth and breathe. And breathe. And you don't have to say all that stuff that's going on in you. And over time, learn to look at them and remember, when they were a baby, I did not expect them to get up and run. I actually expected them to fall. I expected them to struggle a little bit. And while they are learning any new skill, they're going to fall. They're going to struggle a bit. That's what I expect. And then I'm not going to be all upset and all critical because they're human, they're normal, and they're struggling with it just a little bit. I can actually encourage them. Notice the parts they did right and build on that part of it. And so when I'm supporting them, encouraging them, building them up, and not being critical, everything goes so much better in the household. That part is up to me. I am so glad you joined me today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. I will look forward to having you with me again soon. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.